Okay, so a few people have asked me about my off-grid install. Okay, so probably best thing to do is going to be make this into a series because there's frankly just too much stuff to go through. But probably best thing is everybody wants to know right at the beginning inverters. So what you see there, those are the off-grid inverters. So they are Sunny Islands 8. So they're wired in parallel, and they do everything to do with the batteries, converting it from the batteries DC into AC to then do the house. And they are also charge controllers as well, so both charge controllers and inverters, but they are not linked directly to the PV solar panels. Okay, so they are literally only just to do the DC voltage to AC, and then AC voltage to DC for charging, so charge and discharge. Okay, so that's those two. So they can do what, maximum 16 kilowatt at any one time. You can push them a lot harder, but the harder that you push them, then you can only push it for a few seconds. So yeah, if you had some massive MIG welder, something like that, going 3 of them at once or something, then yeah, it could do it for a few seconds, but they're not really designed to push that hard and that fast. Okay, so what else have we got? We've got on the wall over there 2 Sunny Home Managers. So they are what takes the monitoring, puts it under the Sunny platform so you can view what's going on, data logging, that kind of stuff. To the right of it, or right of the lower one, so we're talking that one, that measures more or less everything that is surplus to requirements. So we don't, because you're off grid, you can only bottle so much, so what do you do then with everything else? So that's what that's measuring. In this case, that's doing hot water, and that's doing a ant miner mining Bitcoin. So 2 nice chunky loads. I think together they come up to about 4.5 kilowatts AC is what they consume at any one given time. So rather than waiting for that solar that can't be used for anything, that's what that does. So then you got the meter here, that one there, that measures our generator. So come winter, there's not enough power, not enough solar for a number of days, and that will cut in, and it'll be measured. These meters here and that meter there, you'll see, if I can squeeze in tight enough, what you've got there is 2 little white wires coming out the left hand side, and the other meter is the same, they're just different manufacturers. So what they do is they pulse an output. Same thing if the blinky lights are blinking, then it's using it, and that's then the white wire goes all the way round, the 2 little skinny white wires, and then they go into the bottom of the Sunny Managers. So they are measuring those pulses. So in this case, most people would be having that one, say, would be the household supply. And that's basically what the little clip-on meter that goes over the blinky light does, but it measures the same thing. It's 1,000 pulses or something like that per kilowatt. And then you come round and you've got screen. So what we're looking at, that is top left hand side up there, that's the BMS currently running. And that one there is the BMS for the other set of batteries, and then the lower one is for our wind turbines. Not a very windy day today, is fluctuating anywhere between about 6 mile per hour wind. At the moment it's going up to about 12 occasionally, but bear in mind we are in the middle of summer, so would I really expect it to be doing more than that? Not really. And then swing around to the other side. So this is really proof of concept. It's not so much something for deployment, put it that way. So what we have up there is just a straightforward contactor that feeds our hot water. We have 2 voice frequency relays. So what those measure is over or under frequency. So when the frequency starts to move, and it will move because your batteries are full. So those Sunny Island units, they control the amount of power for the charge to go into the batteries, and when they start to the batteries get too full, it starts to move the frequency up. So here we are running at 50 Hertz on the AC side. So as the batteries start to get more and more full, it will step it up, so it'll be 50.1, then 50.2, until eventually all of the other grid-connected inverters start to understand what's going on with frequency, and they then throttle down to meet the demand. So what this does is it senses when it starts to go over the frequency, and then slowly starts to then pull in hot water, the miner, and things like that. So all these little relays just time controls, because what you don't really want is something turning on, turning off, turning on, turning off every other second. So these are just time delays. So once they come on, they stay on for a minimum period of, I think this is like 20 minutes. So it'll be for a miner, just separate fuses. This one stays on for the hot water for 3 minutes, and then this is just a delay for this one to start up. So otherwise we'll have everything turn on and off at the same time. It's just not necessary, just wear and tear on that contactor. So come down. Right, so this is batteries. So let's run through bits that maybe nobody else has kind of really seen in the field yet. So excuse the rat's nest wiring. We were under quite a lot of stress and strain just to get this operational. And now we are off grid. There's really, you can't really start unplugging everything to tidy up and solder. So as much as it looks a mess, functionality is absolutely fine. Safety, yeah, it's safe enough. You know, I think it's a case of just, if you are going to use bits of wiring, someone you start with the right gauge, the right size, the right everything else. Solder them, heat shrink them. That's okay. I mean, quite frankly, nobody else comes down here other than me, so I'm hardly going to fall into anything. So up there, first of all, that's your BMS. Usually they come with a, see that heat sink down there? So what you have is aluminium cover, and what I started off with is having a massive heat sink. I can't remember what that came off, and that's just screwed to it. So, but actually, as it turned out, the easier way, just take that off completely and ventilate it with a fan straight on it. So you see all those, the lights that are green. Every time it comes up green, it means that it's got a positive supply going in, so you're charging your batteries, and the batteries are balancing. So any additional voltage or anything like that, or any additional, yeah, I suppose additional voltage, it knows that it's one cell's higher than the other, and then it will start to bleed it off through the group of green resistors there. So they just produce heat as it's charging to balance it, and but they can get quite hot, hence the fan. What else you got? Pre-charge, which is that little relay up there, and what that does is just pre-charge the capacitors inside the Sunny Island units before they turn on. Sunny Island inverters are quite chunky, so if you just turn it on straight away, the draw would be enormous. That's what that basically does. Over there, a drop solenoid, and that is literally just for positive supply. So the BMS notices anything not quite right, can't communicate, and this BMS is, I think there's only 2 companies, I think Batrium, this one which is REC. Both of those can communicate through CAN bus to the Sunny Islands, so they are doing the measurement, the logging, calculation, how much charge should you put in, what amperage charge you should put in, all of these kind of things. So it doesn't have to be done by you. You don't need to sit there and then worry and fear. But if it notices anything's not quite right, it would drop that contactor and shut the whole system down and tell you what's going on. So onto the batteries. So silver ones, any of these, they are all from a Nissan Leaf, one whole pack. So the good news is when we got these, which were 2 years ago, it all came from one Nissan Leaf. So they all came out all at the same time, so degradation should be equal across all of them. So we tested one, that came up with 57 amp hours. So you can apply that math and then work it across. So we're running, what are we running? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 parallels, 7 series, I think it is. Yeah. So you can kind of see what you get is 48 in a pack. And when you get 48 in a pack, what happens is you end up being short. So you see over there, so what we did is we just used a group of used 18650 batteries and grouped them together, measured it for 57 amp hours, and then that little red pack on the top there, that's what makes up effectively one cell. So 57 amp hours, 57 amp hours. Chemistry's not quite right, but it's good enough. It works. So that's been tested now, working for, give and take, probably over 8 months, 9 months, something like that. So the only thing that we did find with the REC BMS, for some reason, the way that it measures and the way that it works out what it wants to do, is when it communicates, it tells Sunny Islands up there what the charging voltage should be. And what we were finding is that when we run it as it is now, it doesn't want to do a full charge. It wants to bring the voltage down below these packs. So not really sure why. We spoke to REC. This is well over a year ago probably. Anyway, they're not really too sure, throwing it back to SMA. SMA threw it back to REC, and then we just kept this going forward and backwards. So in the end, to fool the whole system into thinking it needs to charge at a higher voltage than it needs to, we had to add a dummy cell. So that's what that is up there, this one pouch on its own. So that's, I mean, strictly speaking, yes, you could use anything, but it's just a dummy cell. It's not actually in circuit. You can see here it comes up, but the BMS here does read it, so he just thinks there's an extra cell in circuit, but there isn't one. So that's what started off as our main bank, and that was, give and take, probably about 20 kilowatt hours, something like that. So you then come on to the bottom ones. So what we have at the bottom then is BMWs. So these are from a BMW i3. Again, similar thing. We got them thankfully all at the same time, so they were all tested. Everything was fine. Degradation, and strangely enough, so they are 12 cells wired in series. So they give you overall like 48 volts. Now, because our system, the main system, runs a lot higher, so we run almost 60 volts. Now I'll come to that in a minute, why we run 60 and not 48. So these down here are doing 48 volts, those up there are doing 60 volts. So what would happen is you'd either overcharge these, and then they would explode, fire, danger, running all around. Or you have to put your entire system onto 48 volts to get those, to be happy with those. So what we had to do in the end was add cells. So we've done the same thing again, figure out what each one of these cells, if I can peel it back. So you can just about see that's one cell there, and then it goes series up. So you can't take these out. I suppose you can drill them, but why? You know, there's no necessity to. So okay, so and then what that basically does, so we've done 12 cells there, and we know that what we need is 14 cells. So take like this one for instance, so 12, then you got 13, 14. So it doesn't really know anything different from up here. So how it actually works is then each one has its own BMS, 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 etc. And they then just control it, just keep an eye more or less really as a safety device. So you have neutral in and then neutral out to your batteries. So if you did overcharge, undercharge, overcurrent, undercurrent, that BMS could actually still shut down that one pack, take it out of circuit if it knew something wasn't right. So and then you just got buzz bars, so live buzz bar for the DC side, neutral buzz bar for the DC side, and then we split it off from there. So each one of these is pretty balanced. Then we go, say from here, this orange goes all the way down, goes neutral DC, and then goes all the way up, and then joins in with the main Nissan Leaf DC. And that's pretty much all the batteries. So the BMSs that you see down here, they all have Bluetooth, so you can link it to your phone. But in this case, hence this cable here, and that just goes into the side of whatever one you're working on, and then that is the BMS for that. So just keeping an eye, make sure everything runs all right. And at the moment they are each cell's got a differential of what's that, 18, 19 millivolts, something like that. So yeah, they're absolutely fine. So neutral side comes up, and this goes through one shunt. So we keep this shunt just basically as a form of accuracy. You can have as many shunts and reading devices as you want. It doesn't really make any difference. So this is really just a backup shunt is what we have it for, and it just goes into circuit. Doesn't power anything else other than our monitoring inside. And then that goes all the way back, many fuses through the back, and goes up, comes out, and just there. There's another shunt, and that's the shunt which is then connected to the main BMS, and that is what is measured by the BMS that talks with the Sunny Islands. So then the Sunny Island knows how much is going in, going out, how much it needs to charge, how much is it charged already, and then it works all of that out. So you can see there at the bottom, cell 15, that's that dummy cell I was talking about, so that's not really doing anything. But the system works, so it might say 62 volts, whereas we know though, take one cell out. So really you're more like this, 57.9 and not 62. But the point is, at least now it will charge to 100%. So that's the main parts of it. This very bottom one, as we said, that is measuring the DC of the wind, and that'll be a whole different video before I get into that, on how we got that system to work and how we can monitor it, in this case on a PC. But that's pretty much most of it at the moment. So if I walk around, give you an idea, that's our little generator, diesel. There you go, little Hyundai. So originally we had it running on the 30 litre tank up there. It just becomes in a pain of trying to continually fill that thing up. Right, silent generators. Yeah, I think it's a oxymoron. I think it's a freshly frozen. I'm yet to come across a generator that isn't silent. I think, frankly, they are all as loud as each other. It just depends how close you want to stand. So hence the reason why everything is in a double glazed unit, so we can see straight away. You have air in, air out, massive fan. That fan then comes on from a temperature sensor, the board underneath, so that one there. That is like one of those ATS commands, so it will get the signal from the Sunny Island when whatever the percentages that you set to come on. So if you want it on at 10%, you set it at 10% to come on, and then tell it to turn off when it hits 20%, whatever you want. And it'll just chug along and run, and then turn itself on and off. So we modified basically the fuel tank on this. So basically drilled it out. So we still have the original tank in circuit, and we now use that basically as a reserve. So hence the RES is reserve, and then we have ICB, and we just put a much bigger battery. A little battery that you have that's never going to do anything over a long enough period, because you've got all the other stuff like that draining a small amount of volts over a long enough period. So if you don't run it during summer, when you actually want it in winter, you then find out what you've got is a flat battery. So, and then that's our ICB tank filled with diesel. It comes out of there, goes through a filter, etc., and goes through, runs, and then goes into the generator. So nothing really spectacular. And that's pretty much the end of that. Okay. Hey, any questions? Just ask, really. As I said, excuse the kind of rat's nest. Hopefully when we get a point of development, and we can tidy all that up. But yeah, any other ideas, give me a shout.